Welcome, everybody, inside the coach's office. I'm your host, Dan Murphy, alongside my co host, Brian Barnes. And Brian, Michigan Wolverines are national champions. Before we get into that, how you doing this week, man?
I'm doing well. It's been a busy week, but a good week. The weather's changing again for the better, getting a little warmer. Took my first seasonal bike ride last week. At the end of last week, it was great, and things are looking up. Other than for our baseball team and our hockey team, but a lot of good.
We're a basketball town. We're a basketball town.
That is true. I mean, again, I think it's still crazy. The Pistons have the number one seed, and they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, and they're probably still not getting enough.
Nobody's talking about them,
right?
Nobody's talking about them,
which is unfortunate. But man, things are good.
But yeah, Michigan national champions, Brian. You called it. You said it before the tournament. You picked them to win the whole thing. I don't know. Maybe it's just I was trying to hold my excitement a little bit as a Michigan fan. I didn't pick them to win it. But sure enough, man, they did. They rolled all the way through. But the final game, they finally got a true competition. UConn really turned this thing into a rock fight, a real defensive battle. But Michigan was able to pull it out. What are your general thoughts coming out of that game?
Yeah, UConn, they talked about it. They have that championship pedigree, right? They won back-to-back, and that was their third national championship. A lot of those guys were playing in their third national championship in 4 years. And you knew it was probably not, and even though in my mind, I mean, I sent you a text when you asked me, like, hey, who would Michigan rather play? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I believe that I believe that, from the beginning of the season, we could talk about the evolution of college basketball and how my feeling of the better teams are getting better and the divide is getting bigger, right? And you see and you saw it I know UConn wasn't a number one seed, but they were really close, and Illinois wasn't a one, but they were really close. I mean, still the best of the best are right there, right? And if you look at the Ken Pom rankings, like that guy, that formula is awesome. Like his top, I mean, they were all right there, right? So I say all that just because, UConn, again, you kind of knew Danny Hurley was going to coach them up and they were going to be ready to go, and it was a competitive game. But just from the get-go, all year, Michigan was, you could see it. They passed the eye test. They were the best team in the country. And again, as a Michigan State fan, as I've said often, as people that watch us know, but that's okay. It is what it is. I mean, tip your hat to them. They were great. And I don't like they bought their team, right? Bought, not built. I think of some of the tweets I've seen, and I'm just like, come on. It is what it is now in college sports, and they did it the right way within the rules. And I know some people say there's going to be tampering and all that other stuff, whatever. I think everybody has done tampering, every program. So to their credit, yeah, it was a fun game to watch. And it'll be interesting to see now that the season's over, and I kind of feel bad for their coaching staff a little bit. They can enjoy it for about 4 hours, and then the transfer portal opens, right? And then
it's crazy, ain't it?
It is crazy. Then you're back to work. I mean, that reminds me of, kind of those stories. Nick Saban wins a national championship, in college football, and later that night he's texting recruits, and things like that.
It's almost like they're not going to get to enjoy it until they retire.
Yeah,
you can actually sit back and look back at those championships.
Yeah, and Dan, coaches will tell you that too. It's hard when you're in it. We know that. When you're in it, you have to move on, right? You can look back and reflect later on. But fun game to watch. It was, you could argue, it's kind of sloppy, like you said, defensive battle, but sometimes those are fun games to watch. It was good to see some intrigue toward the end of the game. I mean, Michigan kind of started to pull away. But it wasn't like the explosion against Arizona, where it was they were, head and shoulders above them from the beginning.
And you had to have a feeling that with the way they shot, in the semifinal game against Arizona, that they were going to have a little bit of a let. Things tend to even out a little bit when it comes to shooting performances like that. So you thought they would come down to earth a little bit in the finals. And UConn, is so well coached. Dan Hurley is obviously, his resume speaks for himself over these last few years. He's built an incredible program there. Final Four, 3 of the last 4 years. Incredible team, and they put forth a great defensive effort, and that's how they were going to win. Like I said, they had to turn this into a rock fight, turn this into a low-scoring battle, which they did. But ultimately, Michigan's just too much, man. And what impresses me so much, and what's impressed me all all year, but really down the stretch in the tournament and towards the end of the season is just their defensive play.
Mhm.
I mean, they just can absolutely shut you down at every position. Like
Mhm.
you go in and you can take any team in the country and match them up against Michigan. There isn't really any position where Michigan you feel like they're just completely outmatched. Where like the other team, the opposition can exploit a matchup. Like they never had really a true matchup disadvantage at any point in this season. What I wanted at 1 through 5, it was incredible. Their athleticism and their length, their height, like through 1 through 5 is incredible. And then even when they go to the bench, I mean, they have an incredible bench, incredible depth. So
And Dan, I'm the one person like I haven't done a bracket in forever. Like I know people love upsets and the Cinderella and stuff. I love this. Like I remember back in the day, just like teams before players could leave early for the pros. Like there were great teams that didn't make Final Fours, but they were loaded. Like again, I think of Alonzo Mourning, Allen Iverson, right? You know what I'm saying? Like think of these guys. Like some teams were loaded, and I think college athletics, because of the dynamic of the NIL and the transfer portal, is becoming that. Like this Michigan team, I think all of these teams were really good, loaded with NBA talent, right? And the one thing that stood out for me with Michigan is kind of reminded me of like when we, coaching football, right? It's like, okay, even if you have a bad game and your guys aren't playing well, okay, it's still going to be really hard to block that guy because he's a really good player, or my guy is still going to be really fast, right? When you had a really good team. So like think of Michigan, even when they didn't play great, it's like, okay, they still have a 7'4" big man who's like the third or fourth best player on his team. And he made himself into an NBA prospect Mara this year, right? Yeah. Morris Johnson, like all those guys, like they're getting loose balls, they're battling for rebounds. I mean, it was just a perfect dynamic and a perfect setup for them. Even when they were playing poorly, they could still beat you in a lot of different ways. And that's what happened.
The thing with Michigan, they even Lendeborg mentioned it at the end of the game. They're just calling us mercenaries. A lot of transfers when your guys coming in, banding together to win a championship. But you got to look at how much these guys developed from day one to the championship game. And the key guy I look at is Elliot Cadeau at the point guard position. I mean, North Carolina fans were ready to kick that guy out the door, man. And Michigan gets some. I mean, he couldn't hit a 3 to save his life when he was at North Carolina. He ends up being the finals MVP.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you have to give a tremendous amount of credit to Dusty May and how he was able to develop these players and to band these guys, were like a family. Like they were really connected and had an incredible chemistry. And it takes a really great coach to bring players together and do that throughout the course of a season with so many guys coming in from different places. Like you got different personalities, you got different attitudes, and to be able to combine these guys and build the championship team and a 37-3 run in the tournament run that they had. I mean, it's an incredible job by Dusty May.
Well, think of Phil Jackson with the Bulls and the Lakers, right? And historically, when people talk about the great coaches, like he isn't necessarily the guy that's like the tactician, right, or the offensive or defensive wizard, but he's the guy that like he kept Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen in check. He was able to keep Shaq and Kobe and all those personalities and egos in check. Like in a lot of ways, that is what Dusty May did right here. Like there's a lot of guys who were paid, right, to come to Michigan. And that's fine. But he had to find a way to motivate those guys and make sure he kept the main thing, right, and making sure you're developing as a player and as a team and keeping this goal intact. And obviously, fantastic job for that. And that's only going to help. It's only going to help Michigan. Like his reputation now is locked in, right? Like if you're a transfer and you're going to go play for a guy like that, that's only good for Michigan. Or even a recruit like Trey McKinney, arguably could have started for a lot of teams. Like I think in the Big Ten, I mean in the country, right? I mean I think Michigan State, what did they lack this year? A shooter and a 2-guard, and that's Trey McKinney. And so I'm sure Izzo and Sadie Washington and their guys, their staff are kicking themselves for that one. But but it's true, and it's going to be fascinating to see. And I don't think what's cool is like, let's, take away the blinders of anybody's fandom, but like the Big Ten is now kind of become like the dominant conference in college athletics.
Yes.
Right? You can't deny that anymore, that the Big Ten has now overtaken the SEC, especially, in football and basketball are the two sports I'm talking about. And that's pretty cool to see, because for years, how obnoxious was it when you just heard about how great the SEC was. And and whatnot. And, and you kind of knew, and people talked about, well, they do things a little bit differently down there. We're not sure how kosher that is, but now it's the Big Ten.
Yeah, what was the quote? We used to come through the back door with the cash. Now we just come through the front door.
Yeah, right? Yes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! But it has changed. You can't deny it, as you mentioned. Like the Big Ten, the last 3 college football national championships, and now break that curse of 26 years. Winning the basketball national championship. It's the Big Ten is now the dominant conference in college athletics, and it's going to be really tough to change that tide if you're the SEC schools with the money that these Big Ten schools can put out, and then adding in the Pac-12 schools out west, in LA with Oregon and Washington. Like it's the Big Ten it feels unstoppable right now in both sports.
What's funny to me kind of is, like, I remember people talking about, like, the SEC in the South in particular had an advantage because of the weather, right? Like, think of all those dudes, like, specifically for football. Like, yeah, man, like, we, just come down here. We got the weather. You can do this all year. You don't have to worry about and really the weather or the climate wasn't the issue for the Big Ten. They just needed to start being able to paying kids, right?
Yeah.
And that's the great equalizer. The money talks, which is, I guess, is a lesson for everybody still, that money always will talk.
Yeah, you'll deal with some snow if you're getting an extra $1 million.
Yeah.
You go out and shovel some snow a little bit. Hey, you get an extra $1 million.
I think that's
come
okay.
up here to Michigan or Ohio State or Michigan State or wherever.
Yeah.
Money does talk. There's no question about it, and it's going to be interesting to see how and if the SEC and the other conferences can adjust, because. Man, I think the Big Ten had the most teams in the tournament, and then most of them had great runs. What was it, Wisconsin that got knocked out early? But other than that, everybody had a pretty good run, and obviously Michigan winning the national championship. But Dusty May, winning the national championship with Michigan just in his second year here with the Wolverines. Where does that put Tom Izzo? This is a conversation in the storyline we've kind of been following all season. And you've brought it up, like what is Michigan State and Tom Izzo going to do if their arch rival, like truly their arch rival, they hate Michigan.
Yeah.
And Michigan is now the champion, the national champions for the first time since 1989, the first time since Tom Izzo has become coach of Michigan State for so many years. Where do you think they're thinking? What do you think the fan base is thinking? And more importantly, what do you think Tom Izzo and his staff is thinking right now, as transfer portal and recruiting and all that it starts catching fire now?
I think the fan base is thinking exactly like how we're thinking. We talked about it. Like, all right, you have to go all in, and that's the only way you're going to be able to compete for national championships, and that's the dynamic. And I do think Tom Izzo recognizes that. I mean, he's not an idiot. And I do think they're going to bring in guys. I don't know if they're going to bring in those high-end guys that they're talking about in the rankings right now. Like, for example, Flory Badunga from Kansas. Like, he's a center, and they're talking about, he's a guy, a center. That's the position that Michigan State needs. But you mentioned it. You mentioned it early on in our conversations early on this season about how, they were still a Sweet 16 team. Like, they still have, one or two top 1 or 2 recruiting classes in the country next year, right? They're bringing all these guys back except Kohler and Cooper, who did some good things at Michigan State, but obviously they're limited, right, in what they can do. And they're still right there. But I think what Michigan showed you, and again, I think what Arizona is like where does Michigan State have that NBA talent? Like, Michigan has that NBA talent, right? And Arizona has that NBA talent, and Illinois has that. They all had that. All those Final Four teams had NBA talent. I think you're at that point in college sports now that I talked about. The elite are becoming more elite. Like, you need to have some NBA talent, and Michigan State has to get one of those guys, because there's a couple guys that do have local ties that are in the transfer portal. John Blackwell transferring from Wisconsin. He went to Brother Rice, and Aiden Sherrill's a big center from Alabama. He I think had Michigan State as his number 2 choice when he decided to go to Alabama. So and he's from Detroit. So I mean, there are options there for Michigan State that could immediately make them national championship contenders next year. And a lot of the early rankings right now have them as a top some have had them as the number 1 team going into next year, but I didn't see them any lower than 4. I think they're right there, and they're going to be right there. But yeah, I mean, you don't have this, you don't hire David Blatt as an AD, right? You don't raise all this money if you're not going all in the portal. So I do think something, they're going to do something.
It does feel like this rivalry is as good as it's been in a long time. Like I think there is a lot of maybe dissension's not the right word, but just I don't know, man. It just doesn't feel like Tom Izzo respects Dusty May. Am I overstating that or overreading that, Brian? Like I feel like there is some true animosity between these.
Yeah, I wonder if Dusty May is doing this at Penn State or if Dusty May is doing this at Tennessee, if Tom Izzo comes off that way. Like I don't know, right? It's possible. I mean, Tom Izzo, again, he's come from a generation where I think we all, like, in a way, miss those days of, right, what it used to be, recruit guys, develop them, and then see them through. And he's still of that mold, but I mean, it definitely could be. And Dusty May did it the new way, and he won that way. And I think, if anything, what he doesn't like, maybe it's nothing personal against Dusty May, but like to your point, like we're talking about Tom Izzo and Michigan State 2 days after Michigan won the national championship. Like I think it just added the microscope, right? Yeah. It just made it even bigger on Tom Izzo, and he probably doesn't like that because, again, we've talked about this before. There are a lot of programs that wish they had the run that Michigan State had. Like I think I saw Rick Barnes at Tennessee. They made their 3rd straight Elite 8, but I don't know if that school's ever been to the Final Four. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Tennessee fans wish they had the run that Tom Izzo had.
I think we might have brought this up before, but it reminds me so much of Jim Harbaugh with Michigan when they couldn't beat Ohio State, right? Mm. And just the general aspect of like Michigan, like, we don't pay our players, we don't cheat, we don't get in the mud. Yeah. And it constantly felt like, well, you're never going to beat your arch rival. Yeah. And you're looking across, and your arch rival is the symbolism of what you don't want to be and you don't want to become, but at the same time, you can't beat them. And they're winning national championships. They're winning the Big Ten championships. Yeah. And they're your arch rival, and you can't beat them. And you feel like you can't beat them because they're doing things that you refuse to not do. And Michigan State's now in that same position in basketball, looking across the state to their arch rival in Michigan. And they just won the national championship doing the things that you don't want to do. You don't want to do that style of recruiting. You don't want to do that style of transfer portal and paying players and quote unquote mercenaries to try to win a championship. You want to do it the old school way, recruit and develop. And Michigan State's at that crossroads now. Like Michigan did it, right? Michigan did it in football, win or die trying. And we all know what happened. I'm not saying to go to those extremes or the scandals that came along with it for Michigan football, but they did win a national championship. They did finally beat Ohio State 4 straight times, and they had to get in the mud to do it. Is Michigan State? I'm not saying necessarily get in the mud. I'm not saying do dirty things, but do things that have gone against the norm and go against what they've done traditionally, kind of go against the style that they've always done it.
Well, Josh Pate is one of my favorite listens on podcasts with his college football show. And I remember him talking about it in general with the transfer portal stuff. Like coaches and fan bases can claim like the high ground and in the moral and high and mighty, like, hey, no, we're going to do things the right way. That, and this is what we do. And it's still college athletics and all that. Okay, that's great if you want to stand there. But are you going to feel that way? Are you going to still be on that high horse when your rival, right, wins a national championship? I mean, those are pretty much his exact words, like what we're talking about. And it's coming to fruition right now for Michigan State fans and for Tom Izzo and the basketball program and the football program. So, I mean, I think if he, I think it's hard because he's a big culture guy, right? And he wants to make sure that the players there are the right fit. But like, that's not to say Dusty May didn't build a relationships with these kids either and have a culture. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it's like you can combine a little bit of both to me. Like Tom Izzo can still bring in guys that maybe like, hey, I wasn't a good fit, when I started at Alabama or whatever. But like, no, this is really a better fit for me. And then have those guys like assimilate into your culture. Absolutely. That can happen. Like he's got a good staff and he's got now he's going to have some veteran players there that have been there a while. And it's like, hey, Here's how we do things. Yeah, there's no reason like he can't blend a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's a fascinating storylines between Michigan State, and that's what's going to make it fun, man.
Mhm.
It's when you got an in-state rivalry like this with two top 10 basketball programs, it's going to be fun for however long Tom Izzo stays around. I think he's still got quite a few
Well,
years left in him.
And
It's
here's
gonna
the
be
other, Dan. Here's the other point. Why can't Michigan State be Duke, Carolina? Like I know they talked about it forever, right? I know that's been brought up. I know Tom Izzo's talked about it. Like, why can't there be two teams like this in the same state, the rivals that are nationally elite every year? You can, right? I mean, and this is the first time really. You could say it has been. Like, there's been times throughout this rivalry where they were both pretty good, but they weren't consistently like top 5, top 10. Now I think we're to the point where they're going to be consistently top 5, top 10.
And they have a national championship, for the first time in the Big Ten in 26 years. So that helps a lot with it too, because, the ACC was, Duke and North Carolina were winning one of the national championships. And that brought a lot of that prestige along with it. So when you have even an in-state rivalry, but neither one of them have won a national championship in decades, it makes it a little bit lackluster, and it's going to put it a little bit down the totem pole. But now where you got national championship considerations when these teams play, and possible, two teams that are competing for national championships, it definitely enhances the rivalry, not only locally, but I think nationally as well.
For sure. Yep, for sure.
So it's going to be a fun story to follow. Like you said, man, it immediately transfer portal and recruiting, all that heats up soon as that, that final whistle is blown. And going to be fascinating to see how Michigan and Michigan State compete on both in the transfer portal and the recruiting trail. And man, it's going to be fun to follow and fun to watch for a while. But got to switch gears, Brian, to a couple teams that are not exactly playing at championship level, and we're going to start with the Tigers. Man, oh man! After a 2-0 start, they've now lost 8 of their last 10. Including the last 3 in Minnesota, a team that many thought could be the worst team, one of the worst teams in baseball. And I guess we talked to predicted the Twins to finish last in the Central, even behind the White Sox. But here they are. The Tigers have lost 3 straight to the Twins, hoping to salvage a game here later today with Flaherty on the mound. And Brian, we're going to get into some different specifics, but man, just your general thoughts on this 4-8 start for the Tigers.
I think we've talked, like, there are going to be times during the season where teams go through stretches like this. Even the teams that win the World Series, right? You're going to go through a run of losing 7 out of 10, or being at a 4-8 after or through a 12-game stretch. Like, it's going to happen. So that. I don't think that's particularly disappointing. I think the things that bother fans, if following along on Twitter or just texting each other and our friends, is we're seeing a lot of the same issues that came up right pretty much the second half of last season, and they've just carried over. And all we heard from Scott Harris was when it comes to like not signing a bat, right, was that player development and these guys taking that next step has been key, right? And again, keep in mind, it's only been 12 games. All right, let's keep that in mind. But those bad habits are still showing up. The lack of getting a big hit, or not even a big hit, a sacrifice fly or a ground ball to get a runner in from third with less than 2 outs. Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, it's 13 games into the season, they still don't have a home run. And they're your guy, right? You do not have a home run from the first base position. Like that's unheard of right now in Major League Baseball. And so I think fans would be less, I don't want to say panicky, but frustrated if it was a different type of losing, like it was competitive and like, oh, they're just losing tight games, or, the other team pitched really well, whatever. But like, gosh, we're seeing those same bad qualities that we saw at the end of last year. And that gets people, and that got them beat. You know what I'm saying? And so, and I know you talked me off the ledge a little bit, right? You're like, hey, they've been on the road so many times, they haven't had a break. They've been on the West Coast, and then you go to Minnesota, and like, okay, like all that is true. And again, still early. This is the equivalent to what? Maybe a quarter of football in the NFL. I don't even think it's a quarter of an NFL game.
It's like starting 0-1.
It's like starting 0-1, right? It's just, unfortunately, the way it looks. And I remember we talked about this, and I questioned it. And like, you played the clip about Riley Green, strikeouts don't matter, right? And I remember saying, I think at this point in their career, like, they're not prospects anymore. Like, it's hard to change their approach.
They are who they are.
Yeah, they are who they are. It's hard. And now I mean, we're seeing unless in the next 2 months, like those guys drastically, their approach changes and things are better. It's disappointing, but again, it's 12 games. If we're at the 30 game mark or 40 game mark and they're 8 games under 500 or 8, like then it's going to be like, what, are you freaking kidding me? Because then I'm sorry, it's even with the wild card, it's not too early to start thinking, okay, like who's not going to be here July 31st, which is crazy that we're even talking about this on April 9th, but.
That's the thing too, Brian, because they got so many guys on 1-year deals, specifically the crown jewel and Skubal. Like they can't afford to be like, we're 5 or 6 out of the wild card. Well, remember 2024, we could do it again. They can't do that. Like, because if they get to the trade deadline and they're 5 or 6 games out, they got to dump guys. They absolutely have to, because they can't take that chance that they're going to have a miracle run again. Like they got to trade Skubal. They got to trade all these 1-year guys, Torres, Flaherty, all of them, all these guys that are on 1-year deals, because, we've brought this up numerous times and it just keeps, every time I watch them, it just hammers home. Like the core of this group is McGonigal. Yep. It's Max Clark, who looks incredible in Toledo right now. We'll get into that in a second. It's Dingler. Yep. It's Colt Keith. Like these are the guys. And these like and Dingler and Keith were guys I believe originally from the Avila drafted, but they weren't developed under Avila. You know what I'm saying? Like there was the new scouts, the new coaches that came in under Scott Harris. When those guys started to develop and started coming up through the systems, it's the guys that were here already and kind of established on the major league club in Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, and Kerry Carpenter to a little bit lesser degree. But those 3 are your core middle line. That's like you're supposed to be your 3, 4, 5 power hitters, drive runs home. And man, that not only the strikeouts, an issue. You brought it up. They don't have a home run at Torkelson and Green.
No,
like those are your guys. Those are supposed to be your power hitters, your RBI guys. There's no power right now. And if they're not supplying power, what are they bringing to the table? Nothing. They're bringing nothing to the table.
Torkelson is arguably, if he's not playing, he's a first base DH, right? Who doesn't drive in any runs.
And he's not good defensively.
And Riley Green looks like he's 35 when he runs, right? Like he's not, he's extremely limited. No, I think the other, it could be scary part if these guys don't perform in the next 3-4 months, right? Is their value is deteriorating before our eyes. Like there was a time they were still the young prospects that, hey, like, you know what, they can develop it. If not, you could trade them and get something for them in return. Now it's like, I'm not saying they're going to deal Torque and Green, but like they're getting to that point that it's the player that, hey, we need to trade them just to give them a fresh start. Yeah. That's what it's becoming to me if they don't turn around the next couple of years. And
I think Torkelson, of all of them, Torkelson is the one.
I agree.
Of those 3, that is the one where you could just see him just going away.
I agree, because
there's nothing. He's not bringing anything to the table at all.
Because unfortunately,
he's a negative WAR player.
No, I know, and he had a couple of years where has he had a 40 home run season? I don't know if he's had the 40, but he's
30.
He's in the 30s, right?
30, but yeah,
here's the crazy part though, like. This is how baseball has evolved. There's a lot of guys that have 30 home run seasons who hit 240, right? You know what I'm saying? And like the Tigers, if they really want that, they can just go get one. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that is
Alonso, like
right.
The market for him. Like you would think the market would be incredible.
Yeah,
for a guy like him, it really wasn't that hot.
No. And so again, And it's not fair. Like, Valdez didn't have a great first inning yesterday, right? Like, it's not fair. Like, I mean, they're not
to say the least. Yeah, 6 runs.
Yeah, I would say to say the least. Yeah. So Valdez and Skubal, like, they're not going to be dominant every game as we have seen, right? That's just not going to happen, right? More often than not, yes. But like, gosh, like it's been bad because again, like there are guys on the Twins that like. You're like, who would these guys start for? Other than Byron Buxton, who like he's a guy like we've talked about Jose Ramirez in Cleveland, but like he's a guy, Byron Buxton, it's like, gosh, a division rival I'd love to have on the Tigers. Like somebody like those, right? You know what I'm saying? And like poor guys stuck in Minnesota. It's just again, like it'll be, Dan, it's April 9th. Like when we have this conversation on May 9th, where are the Tigers going to be, right? And here's we talked about the Cleveland like voodoo and what they do and stuff like that, and picking against them is hard. And Scott Bentley talked about that. Chase DeLauter, like as good as Kevin McGonigal has been, Chase DeLauter might be the best rookie in baseball. Yeah. Stupid Cleveland, you know what I mean? Crazy.
Yeah, he might have as many home runs as the entire Tiger team right
now. Oh my gosh,
definitely has more home runs than Torque and Green combined.
He definitely does.
Incredible. Definitely. I'm gonna try to get us a little positive mode in a second, but I'm gonna stick with the negative side for a second here. And I've been a huge AJ Hinch fan since he came here. I think he's done wonders. What he did in that 2024 season, the fact that he didn't win Coach of the Year is beyond comprehension. I don't know how you don't win it with that type of run and what he was able to do down the stretch with that team. But what he did a lot during that stretch was a lot of mixing and matching, a lot of pinch hitting, a lot of, like treating every situation like it's Game 7 of the World Series.
Yeah.
And he had to do it, and he did it masterfully. But this roster, in terms of, I'm looking at more like Colt Keith in particular. He's the guy that I'm, more focused on. He's starting to establish himself as a true major league hitter. And he needs to be given the opportunity to show that and to show what he can do against left-handed pitchers, because they put a lot of faith in this guy. They signed him long-term before he ever made his major league debut. They're putting a lot of trust in him to come up and be one of the staples of this team and one of the pieces of their core, like the true core of what Scott Harris is trying to build around. And to consistently be pinch hitting him in the 6th inning, 7th inning of games for Jahmai Jones and guys of that ilk or Vierling, to bring in a right-handed hitter, it's been incredibly frustrating. And I want to bring up this tweet from Tony Paul. And he said, 3 things I don't like. And it was like he just hit on everything that I've been frustrated with. He said pinch hitting for Colt Keith, Jahmai Jones batting against right-handed pitchers, and saving your challenges for the 9th inning, or saving your challenge in the 9th inning. And we talked about the challenge system, and that we thought the Tigers need to use their challenges, a little bit more fluently, a little bit more, a little bit better overall. And we still kind of agree with that point. But the Jahmai Jones aspect, right? Like there was 3 games in a row where Jahmai Jones got pinch hit in the 6th or 7th inning to come up against a left-handed pitcher. Didn't get the hit, right? In the key situation, I think he's over 10 this year. And then, but what happens is you get into the 9th inning, and now Jahmai Jones is still in. You don't have any left-handed hitters on the bench to pinch hit for him. So now you got Jahmai Jones in a key situation in the 9th inning going right on right. 3 games in a row that happened, Brian. Like, to me, that's inexcusable from AJ Hinch to do that. And I get he's pushed. It's like he's pushing all his chips in the middle of the table in the 7th inning, hoping he can get the big hit with this right-hander off the bench. But you're taking out one of, if not your best hitters in Colt Keith consistently. Like, what have you thought about AJ Hinch overall, and more specifically these 12 games? And do you think it's starting to get to the point where he's really over managing, and he needs to start letting his best players just play throughout and play 9 innings?
Yeah, he's definitely an analytics guy, and it hasn't worked out. And Jahmai Jones has kind of become this year's Andy Ibanez to me, right? Like that, that guy, he's filled that role, and had a great postseason a couple of years ago. Ibanez did, but didn't have a great year last year. And Jahmai Jones is very similar start. So, hopefully he's evaluating this too, right? And looking at it and saying, for whatever reason, it's just not working. One of the things that the guy that you've talked about ad nauseum that is really doing well, that I think could change a lot of how AJ Hinch does things, is Wenceel Perez. Yeah. Like, he's been raking at AAA, and he's a guy, again, switch hitter you're not going to have to pinch hit for, or if
you do use him in the Jahmai Jones situation, right, where
correct.
You pinch hit and then he gets the opposite hand against him, well, he can flip over because he's
correct.
switch
hitter. Yeah,
gives you a lot more options,
no doubt. So I think that's going to happen at some point. But yeah, and it's one of those things, like when you make decisions and pinch hit and bring in pitchers, like, in theory, the logic says maybe that's the best move, but when it doesn't work, you're going to be criticized. I mean, that's what happens in the business, and it hasn't worked so far. And yeah, to your point, I think it's really frustrating when Like, because I think the message it sends to Colt Keith is, okay, you're never going to develop and to be able to hit left-handed pitching competently ever.
Hey, you're just going to be forever a platoon player.
That's what it's, and I think that is probably really frustrating for him. But I mean, if the Tigers brass thinks that, then why'd you give him that amount of money?
I guess my frustration with everything with Colt Keith, and we've talked about this with the different guests we've had, and we talked a lot about it with Clay Snowden, because he was a big proponent of Colt Keith. He thought he was going to be a big factor this season and had a chance to really break through as a hitter. And I brought up the point of like from day one, they've bounced this guy around. Like he is not solidified into a position. Like he originally came up as a third baseman, hurt his shoulder, so they tried to move him over to second base. Well, he played second base for a little bit, and then they got Torres. So now they move him to first. Well, then Torkelson has the great spring last season. Wow, so I guess you're not really going to play first. You're going to bounce around a little bit. Torres gets banged up. They move him back to second. He struggles, justifiably so, because he keeps bouncing around positions. And then late last season, wow, we're going to give you a chance at third. Originally, he probably thought he probably wasn't going to play third anymore after the shoulder injury. So they just continue to bounce this guy around: first base, second base, third base, DH. You're getting pinch hit for in this 6th and 7th inning because your manager doesn't trust you against left-handed pitching. Yeah. Like, I don't know, man. Like, as a young player, it's got to get in your head. Like, just let this guy solidify himself into a position and let him play 9 innings. Like, he's shown already this earliest. He showed in spring and he showed early in his first 12 games. Man, the dude can hit. The dude can rake. Like, let him play. Like, solidify the guy at third. Have McGonigal solidified at shortstop, and let's roll, man. Like, those are your core guys. Let's roll with that.
I think I'm aging myself right now that I can't remember the exact name of the players, but I want to say it was one of Alan Trammell's first year as a Tigers manager, and this same conversation came up. Like, the Tigers had some young guys then. Gabe Kapler was one. And instead of letting those guys bat in the 9th inning, here comes a veteran off the bench who's going to hit. I think it was a little bit different. It wasn't as much matchup oriented as it was letting the young guy in that situation see what he can do. And this reminds me of that a little bit. But AJ Hinch at least has a history of, success, being successful, winning a World Series. So you can give him some credit and some leeway there. But yeah, it just hasn't worked to this point through 12 games. And it's and again,
I guess not to cut you off, but the question is going to be like, how long does he ride with this philosophy? Because it obviously worked so well for him in 2024, and it worked for a while in 2025 until the collapse.
Yeah,
right. They have not been a very good team since August of last year.
If they're 6-6 right now, this wouldn't be as big of a.
I'd still be questioning.
You would. I know you would.
I would still be questioning these decisions.
I know you would. If they're 7-5, I mean, yes, question it, but there's not a lot going right now. Yeah. There's just not. Colt Keith is one of them. He's one of the ones that is going right, and you're right. Feels funny to be messing with the guy who's going right.
Yeah, because he's one of the few hitters that are actually hitting
right now,
and to keep messing around with him, just I don't know. It seems bizarre. It seems like poor management. I mean, there's no other way to do it. And it's easy to say because Jahmai Jones comes in, he puts him in that situation. He performed so well last year in those exact same situations, and he's just not so far early on. And if he can't hit left-handed pitching, there's no use for him at all.
Correct. And then you shouldn't have given him the contract you did, right? And that is what it is.
No, I'm saying Jahmai Jones. I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
He's specifically, that's his specific role.
Has zero value.
And he cannot perform in that specific role.
It's like,
then you got to take that role away from him.
No doubt. You're a left-handed reliever. You can't get lefties out. Like, what's your point? Like, we don't need you. Yeah, no. I totally agree. Dan, it's after 12 games. It's April 9th. Are you ready to go with any bold predictions? Are you at that point yet? Like, at what point? I know we didn't say we're panicking. Like, I sent you a text last night, but I said I am a little worried.
Okay, so this is where we turn things to a positive.
Okay.
Aspect, or glass half full. Okay, so I was thinking about this. I'm like, I wanted to make sure I got this graphic. All right, I wanted to look at the American League before I pulled this up. Before the season, if you had to name 3 teams that were outside of the Guardians, because the Guardians are always concerned because it's the freaking Guardians, and that's the divisional rival. But outside of them, if you had to name 3 teams in the American League, who would you be most concerned about?
Yankees, Mariners, Blue Jays.
Mariners, Blue Jays, and I would add the Red Sox.
Okay, the
I read
Red
that as well. Okay, another playoff team that I think is going to improve this year. And
Yeah.
I thought I got some good pitching with Ranger Suarez and Sonny Gray. I did the rotation, and they got some young pitching and some good young hitters. I think they're going to be really good. That's my pick: is the Red Sox, Tigers, ALCS. All right, so obviously the Yankees. We'll put the Yankees up there, but Blue Jays, Mariners, who were the ALCS competitors last year, and the Red Sox. Right. So let's look at the standings here. Okay. Look at the bottom of those standings, Ryan.
Yeah.
Mariners 4-9, Red Sox 4-8. You got the Tigers at 4-8, and then you got the Blue Jays down there at 5-7. Those are 4 teams right there that we all are saying they're going to be in the playoffs, or at least be contending late in September. They're all sitting there at the bottom. So it just shows you like this is not how the standings are going to look. Probably not even a month from now, let alone 5. 6 months down the road.
No.
So it's so incredibly early. But there are concerns. There's no doubt there are concerns. But from it's looking at it, the glass half full way, like, yeah, they're gonna be okay. They're gonna be okay.
The one thing about baseball too, more than the other 3 professional sports, is 2 things. Like the wild card, I know in the other sports they have more playoff teams, but the wild card in baseball and like the dynamic of your team can change a lot August 1st because of the trade deadline. So like that's like an entirely new season. So the Tigers have a lot of time. Like time is not a bad thing. You're right. They will be okay. It's just 2 things can be right though. You can feel good or recognize that it's a long season and also be frustrated because it is frustrating because like I think like the room for growth guys, right? McGonigal, Colt Keith, even Dylan Dingler still, right? Even Parker Meadows to a degree. Like, okay, those are all you can deal with some of their stuff still. But like, I don't know how much
growth. All those guys you mentioned are all performing well.
And they are performing well. But like, how much growth is there still for like was last year Riley Green's career year?
It very well could be.
Like how much more growth is there? And that to me is just as an interesting dynamic as anything is that growth part to see where those guys are, because that's the reason, like, again, we think they're all in. You signed Verlander and Valdez, like you're all in, but that's the reason why they didn't sign a bat. And granted, the hitting market maybe wasn't, what it was a couple of years ago, but if those guys don't develop, like the Tigers are screwed. Like, don't kid yourself. Like if Green and Torkelson in particular, they're screwed. And we haven't even mentioned your guy Javi, right? And although he had a couple good hits last night, big hit, right? But you know what you're going to get there. Like there's no growth there. He is what he is. Like I think we can all agree too. Like I think it's unfair to criticize Zach McKinstry. Nobody's really doing that. But like he is who he is, and he had a career year last year. Like it can be very hard for him to do that again. So to me, it's still those 2 guys that are not Scott Harris guys, and Torkelson and Green.
Yeah, Torkelson and Green were the prospects that were not his guys.
And
from a hitting perspective, and I'm just going to talk from a hitting. Casey Mize is there too, but from a hitting perspective, because really when I look at Scott Harris, like his philosophy is trying to get guys that are going to make contact and own the strike zone, right? High walk guys, low strikeout guys. He has to be just pounding his head on the table when he watches Torque and Green and Baez, like because they're just totally opposite of what he wants this lineup to be and this team to be, what he's trying to build. Like you just look from the minor single A all the way up, like what he's trying to build. And Torque, Green, and Javi are just the complete opposite of what
there was. One very small criticism of Kevin McGonigal last night. It was the 8th inning, and the Tigers are down 2, right? And runners on first and second, and he's up to bat, and he has a 3-0 count, and he swings and pops up to third. And in my mind, here's what I was thinking. Like, okay, you're right. AJ Hinch, we're talking about him in your work, like over managing a little bit and overthinking stuff with the matchups and letting guys hit and things like that. So he's doing that. But in my mind last night, I'm like, oh my God, just give him the take sign.
Yeah. Like
do not swing. Like make him throw 3 strikes in a row at you, right? I mean, it's one thing that like, okay, the manager has confidence in his guys, right? That's what, why people love Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down. Like he has confidence in his guys. And I think that was that situation last night. But oh my gosh, like in that situation, the 8th inning, I mean, it wasn't the first or second inning of a tie game. I mean, you have the tying runs on base and it's 3-0, and he's still 21 years old, even though he agrees probably right now it feels like the best hitter on the team. But like in that moment, God, give him the take sign. Or maybe he did and McGonigal swung his own. I don't know, but like,
or maybe he just trusted McGonigal's,
his plate discipline. Of course,
because it's that. If you just want to, maybe we don't want to go as far to say he's the best hitter, but definitely has the best plate discipline of anybody on the team.
Yes, but I just wonder, like, I mean, you don't want your players to feel like you don't trust them, but like, goodness, like to me, that was a moment, because the pitcher, I can't remember his name, he was all over the place that inning. Like, he was having a hard time throwing strikes, and that baffled me a little bit last night. That was frustrating.
But those type of things are what you expect from a 21-year-old 2 weeks into his first major league career, because those are things he's going to learn from. He's going to look back and be like, man, I should have took that 3-0 pitch, unless it was absolutely down the middle what I was looking for.
No question.
I should have let that one go by. But he'll learn from that. Those are things it's frustrating, but I'm not going to lose my mind over it, because the guy's learning. The kid's learning, right?
Yep.
But it's Riley Greene, continually not challenging. He's a three ball count. I think it was a 3-1 count, 2 guys on, and it's a high. They call it a strike, but it was well above the strike zone, and he didn't challenge.
Yeah,
and he ends up popping up. And like that was the 2 games in a row that he did that. Now the game prior, he ended up actually walking, so I'll give him credit for that. But still, he could have challenged and gotten the ball for beforehand. And you just wonder, like, we talk about plate discipline. Does he just not recognize the strike zone? Like, he doesn't trust himself to challenge in those situations, because he isn't sure he's going to get it right. Yeah. But man, that's a huge situation. You got to challenge that call. And it goes back to the Tony Paul tweet, not using your challenges.
Yeah.
The 8th inning, 9th inning, that's when you got to use them. That's the whole point. If you're going to save them, that's the whole point of using them. You don't get to take them home with you. They don't carry over to the next game. So just man, a lot of frustrations. It's just so disappointing, because so excited for the season, and to start off 2-0. It's like in that first game, they start off like 8-0 in San Diego. It's like, oh man, here we go. This is the team. This is the World Series contender, Tigers. Like, let's go. And now to lose 8-10 and 3 straight to the god awful Twins. You can't even name half their players. Not even half their players. 90% of the players I don't even know who they are. I'm a diehard baseball fan, and it's frustrating right now, man. It really is. But on a positive, another positive note, we looked at the American League standings. We know it's not going to look like this down the road. But I am very curious about your thoughts on Max Clark. Mm-hmm. And this is a tweet that friend Roger Castillo put out, and just talked about like what his start was when he first started with Western Michigan, and comparing it to his start in Toledo, and just how incredible his start with the Mud Hens has been. It's like any level that he's just starting at, whether it was single, high A at West Michigan, or at Erie, like his start at Toledo, like far exceeds any start he's had in his baseball career. And he is just absolutely on fire to start the season with the Mud Hens. And it's going to put in the question of, okay, you talked about with Clark, you just look at him, and I was watching him yesterday. I'm like, man, he still looks like a kid. And he is a kid, but you look at him compared to like McGonigal, and it's just, he doesn't look physically like a major league player yet. You talk about like man muscles, like he doesn't have his man muscles yet. But man, he's hitting the heck of the ball. You talk about plate discipline. He's walking like crazy. Strikeouts are low. He gets on base. Man, he's got 5 stolen bases already. He's looking the part, Ryan. Yeah. He's looking the part of the top 5 prospect in all of baseball. And this team's 4-8 right now. They continue to struggle, and Max Clark continues to hit the heck of the ball and steal bases, and look incredible defensively. At what point do you think about even bringing him up just to bring a spark to your team? It light a little bit of fire, because he brings that. We talked about him since we first ever talked about Max Clark. Man, he brings a little bit of swag. Like you talked about the chains, he gets criticism for that, but he brings some aura, some swag to him, some confidence, and his style of play is infectious. You wonder at what point maybe they bring him up earlier than any of us would have thought. What do you think about Max Clark right now?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I think like we talked about this, all of the criticisms that he got spring training, I thought were a little unfair. You know what I'm saying? And he's still developing, and he's unfairly compared to Kevin McGonigal, as you've talked about. But yeah, just because, like, it's great to see. Like, don't get me wrong, but just because he's doing this right now, okay, you want to again talk about small sample size, things like that. He's doing this right now. He's still developing as a hitter. Just because he's performing right now against the guys who are borderline major league players doesn't necessarily mean he's ready for the day in day out grind of being a major league baseball player. So if the Tigers are at a point where they need to bring him up to provide a spark, then the season's done. Like I'm not ready for that. And as much as this is great to see, like I don't know if he's physically or mentally ready for that part of Major League Baseball. But I think the one who is Wenceel Perez. Like, and again, he's your guy, and we've talked about that. Like, he's been raking and doing things as well. I think he'll be the natural one that comes up before that. But this is a great sign to see for Max Clark, and that isn't interesting that. His adjustment, as Roger mentions, a little bit easier at Toledo than at West Michigan. And you wonder if part of that too is like and Roger has attested to this, like sometimes the best prospects, like they say, like if you can hit at the AA level, like you can play at the AA level, you're major league ready. Because a lot of times the AAA guys aren't your high level prospects. Like those are the guys that are the 4A guys or are on the 40-man roster and kind of going back and forth, right? So, but still, that being said, he's playing against much older guys too, and it's been a good start for him. But no, I don't think, man, if the Tigers need a spark and that's what it's like, dude, that's because you never know, like, does that hinder his development? Because again, the game planning at the major league level and how guys or teams are going to pitch him is way different now than he's seen at Toledo. So no, I still think he's an end of the season type guy, if anything. But it's a great start though. Still a great start for him.
Yeah, I remember, speaking of Cole Keith, I remember when he was just hitting bombs for the Mud Hens. Every time I'd flip Twitter on, I'd see Roger posting that he hit another home run. And, the fans were calling for, you got to bring Cole Keith up. You got to bring Cole Keith up. And I was in that group who thought they should have brought him up because they needed a power hitter and needed to add some power to the lineup. But, eventually when Cole Keith finally did come up, I struggled a while. It took a while for him to get adjusted to major league pitching and just the major league lifestyle. And, we're seeing it now with Cole Keith. We're really, these first 12 games this season, we saw it in spring too, I think. We're really seeing what Cole Keith can bring to the table, but it took a while, it might be that way for Max Clark. And I agree with you. I just find it interesting, they're starting so slow and, it feels like they're just kind of lacking something. And you're seeing Max Clark doing everything that he's out to be. He's showing that off in Toledo. You're just wondering if it's going to continue to gain momentum within the fan base, and you're going to start hearing it on the radio, like, when are they going to bring him up? When are they going to bring him up? Because it's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think if they didn't break camp with McGonigal and McGonigal is doing this, it would make sense. Yeah, right. Like, you know what I'm saying? That would make sense because he more looks the part, and obviously he's doing fine. The thing is too is like in the minor leagues and especially at AAA, like right now Max Clark is hitting against maybe 2 or 3 major league pitchers, like a game on the opposing team. Like when you get to the majors, you're going up against 12 major league pitchers, right? Yeah. Like that's the thing. So yeah, and
specialized to come in to face you specifically.
No
left-handers out of the bullpen specifically to face you.
Yeah,
throwing 98 to 100.
Like, right? No, yeah. Hey Max, we know you struggled with the slider down the way. You know what? Like you're going to stay down here and you're going to work on this, and that, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of layers to that, but still, no, it's fantastic right now.
But it is for sure good to see because he did struggle in spring. There's no doubt about it. And to see him play so well early with Toledo and AAA, it's a good sign, and it's a good sign for just the organizational depth. that this team does have, because if they do continue to struggle, they have some options. They're not just grasping at straws to bring guys up. Like you mentioned, Wenzel Perez, he'd probably be the first one to come up. I imagine if Jahmai Jones continues to struggle and isn't able to perform in the role that he's put in, that Wenzel Perez will be up. He'd probably be up pretty soon. Max Clark is probably more down the road, but definitely after seeing this start, and we already kind of thought this before the season, but already seeing this start, I think we're definitely going to see Max Clark at some point this season.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a question of when. And,
no doubt.
But
you mean we're not in a better shape now than we were when we had Ryan Kryler starting in center field and opening day?
Yeah. I mean, the injuries haven't really crippled them. It's just lack of performance, right? And some of it too, man. Like looking back at some of the positives with this team and trying to have a glass half full. Like you talk about getting BABIP, batting average of balls in play. Like there's a lot of that going on too. Like just some bad luck. Like you look at a couple of swings from McKinstry last night.
Yeah,
like. Man, the infielders just an inch over to the left, and that ball's a double, and we're talking it's like a tie game. Like it's things like that. Where opposite team, the opposition, they're getting hits that maybe normally get caught. And
Cole Keith getting robbed of 2 home runs. In Arizona, right? Like just bad luck.
A lot of that, the water that is the water will come to the level on that type of stuff, and a lot of that stuff will even out.
For sure.
And they also, 9 of the first 12 games on the road, including a West Coast trip. It's a pretty wild start to the season in terms of travel and, all kinds of different kinds of weather. You're playing at like 80-degree, 85-degree weather in San Diego. You're playing at 35-degree weather in Minnesota and Detroit. It's kind of a crazy start to the year for them.
Yes.
Things will settle down, things will start to even out, and I think they'll be just fine. But I never like seeing them already 3.5 games behind Cleveland. I just don't like looking at this. I don't care how early in the season it is. I just, Cleveland's their arch nemesis, man. And already seeing them already 3.5 games ahead is not great. Not what you want to see, but we'll see how things go with the Tigers. So hopefully they can get a win today and get things back on track. And then they got the Marlins at home for 3. So hopefully they get good things back on track and get going here. But a team that doesn't have a lot of runway like the Tigers, doesn't have 5 more months of the season to go, and that is the Detroit Red Wings. Man, oh man. Once again, Brian, it just feels like we're just seeing the same old movie for another year here in late March and in the early April here. The other night, the Wings had 1-goal lead against Columbus, a team that they're battling with to try to get one of those last wild card spots. Have a 1-goal lead with 18 seconds left and couldn't hold it, give up a goal, and end up losing the game in a shootout. It kind of feels like maybe not the complete death blow, but definitely felt like a bit of a dagger to the Red Wings in their season this year. And Brian, I just want to get into, we don't have to get too deep into different things about the team and the roster and that, but just in general, Steve Yzerman, and we got to talk about it because it's 7 years now, and this team looks like again not going to make the playoffs for the 10th straight season. And we talked about this when we were guests on the Lou Galen show, but if his name was anybody else other than Steve Yzerman, if he wasn't one of those most beloved athletes in the history of Detroit sports, and I can speak personally, like he's my all-time favorite athlete. And I worshiped this guy when I was a kid, man. He was my all-time favorite athlete. But even I got to say it, man, if they don't make the playoffs, man, they got to seriously think about letting him go and move in a different direction. What do you think about Steve Yzerman if they don't make this playoffs this season? Do you think he needs to be moved out?
Well, there is a precedent with Detroit sports athletes who came in an administrative role or managerial role and didn't succeed and got let go, and Alan Trammell and Joe Dumars, right, who were also guys.
Dumars won a title.
Dumars did
6 straight Eastern Conference Finals, and they still got booted out.
And they did, yeah. So it's not an unprecedented situation if they decide to get rid of him. I could see a situation maybe where he gets moved into a different front office role instead of just outright cutting them, kind of thing, because he did.
You think he would even do that?
I don't know.
I think any. I'm not saying he's a super egotistical guy, but I think any man in that role who's done the things that he's done in the sport is going to have a tough time just stepping aside and taking a different role.
I'm curious how close Steve Yzerman thinks they really are to being elite, because again, he has a track record. He did a lot of good things in Tampa Bay, but like this was the season, especially when you're in first place at the All-Star break. Like this was the year you thought
It made the deadline move
yeah,
first round
made the
pick
deadline.
for
Yeah,
defenseman.
you really thought this was going to be it. So unfortunately, here's the question: if they decide, Chris Ilitch and the Brass decide to move on from Steve Yzerman, like where do you go from here? Like that's my point. Is like you've invested in these young guys, and Larkin, Raymond, and Sider, and the draft picks. Kosa, you're hoping he'd be ready by now. Trey Augustine, who's a Michigan State goalie. Like they've got some organizational depth, but I know nobody wants to hear that. But I could see a situation where they retool before they fire him and get rid of him. What I mean by that is like you might see some of those names that I just mentioned be moved on, right? In a trade and see if you can get some talent in return, because for whatever reason, this is not working, obviously. And then from there, like, because again, if you get rid of Yzerman, what are we doing? Is it can't be, they cannot go through a full blown rebuild mode again. Like 10 years is already too much, right? You can't just start. I know people on the radio get rid of Larkin, like as soon as you start trading talent, like if you're not getting, NHL ready talent in return, then you're saying you're not a playoff team for another 5 years.
But I just look at this, and the reason I would give him more leash than anybody because he is my all-time favorite athlete. But I just watched this team on a night in, night out basis for a couple of years now, and it's just the same old story. When the competition gets ultra tough, like ultra physical, you got to fight for every inch on that ice.
Yeah,
they don't have it. They just don't have it. They're just strictly not tough enough. They're not tough enough, Brian, across the board. This whole roster, the only guy I look at and I see like, yeah, that guy's tough. That guy is a physical specimen. He is ready for a playoff hockey, and that's Mo Seider.
Yep.
And I would make him the captain. Like I take the C off of Larkin, and I put that on Seider because Seider exemplifies everything that you're trying to build, exemplifies everything that you want a playoff championship level hockey team to be. But outside of him, it's a bunch of finesse goal scorers.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying when I think we talked about it with Lou, like the Red Wings, that dynamic, because you heard the same thing with Keith Primo, right? And he was tough, but not really, right? He was more of a skill guy. Like not until they traded for Brendan Shanahan did you really feel like, okay, now they got that power forward who's gonna be that guy that you're talking about. But yeah, it's apparent that whatever's going on is not working. Like this group of players is not working. Like they're on their second coach, right? With these guys, it's just not working. And to that point, either you acquire those guys, right? And they're not always easy to come by, because at this point you can't start over. I think if you remove Steve Yzerman right now, I think it's again, where are you going? Like they're his guys, kind of similar to with Al Avila and Scott Harris, right? Like Scott Harris, like when they hired Scott Harris, like it's an entirely different philosophy, right? Like if that's what you're doing, then you're kind of admitting that, all right, it's gonna be still kind of a rebuild, and I don't think we want that either.
I guess, and maybe we need to bring on a guest, in the next few weeks, especially when this season comes to a conclusion. And
when it officially
out, missed the playoffs for the 10th straight year.
Yeah,
bring somebody on, especially who knows the minor league systems and who they've drafted over the last several years, because I'm curious to know what style of players they have that are nearly coming up, or they're going to be coming up over the next 1 to 2 seasons. Or even 3 seasons, because if those are players play a style hockey that's going to improve what they are in March and early April, more of a playoff style of hockey or a grinding, physical style of hockey, then my thoughts change a little bit. But if the players are going to be more of the same, then I think they might need to blow this thing up, because this style of what this roster is up and down the roster is not getting it done in March. We just know it. We've seen it 3 years in a row now. They collapse in March when it gets physical and tough. So if they don't have the players coming up through the system that are going to replace some of these guys, then they need to relook how the entire roster is being built, and that's why I'm kind of looking at like maybe he needs to go, because this entire roster is an issue. Like they're just not tough enough. I don't know how much more I could say it. They're not a tough enough team across the board.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like I wonder, like this offseason, instead of going that route, like he makes a concerted effort. Like, okay, there's some guys that got to go. Like we need to retool. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that can happen.
It's tough to do though.
It is tough to do, but I go back to the mid '90s, right? With we're trading Paul Coffey and Keith Primo, we're getting Brendan Shanahan. Like there were things that happened. Like they have talent here, and you can get talent in return without just blowing it up. Like I think the fan base would give him some leeway if that's the approach this offseason, right? I think and then see how that works first before saying, hey, you're gone. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what they're going to do. If I'm going to ask for a prediction, I definitely don't think he's getting fired.
No.
Should he get fired? If they came out after the season and said Steve Yzerman's gone, we're looking for a new GM, I wouldn't be upset about it at all. Like my favorite athlete of all time got fired. Like it would suck, but I totally understand it, because I would say, yeah, they need to go in a different direction. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to stick with Yzerman, and they're going to try to retool this thing. But it's going to be really tough, and it's really tough to make lateral moves with different teams in the AHL. Like generally, if you're going to move, whether it's a guy like a DeBrincat or even a Dylan Larkin, like you're not going to get guys at equal value. You're going to get guys at a lesser value, and you're going to get picks.
It would have to be a situation where it's a team in a similar boat to a degree, right? Or a team that has talent but didn't break through, like Connor McDavid or something, right? You know what I mean? I'm not saying the Red Wings are acquiring Connor McDavid, but to that point, an organization that has tried it and they just didn't break through, and you got to start over.
Would you trade Dylan Larkin then?
That
would definitely shake things up. There's no doubt.
It would definitely shake things up. Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. Like you said, I think Seider's the only one who's untouchable.
Untouchable, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's the only one.
I still go back to all this. Like, I mean, the toughness thing is alarming to me. But I still go back to it, man. They just have not brought up that top prospect goalie.
No.
Like 7 years in, we're still here. Oh, Kosa and Augustine at some point. Well, how long are we going to wait for like a goalie? The other point is like, obviously they had to have thought one of these guys would be up by now. One of their prospect goalies would be up by now. Because otherwise, why wouldn't you have made a move 2 or 3 years ago to bring in a really good veteran? I know they brought in Gibson, who's had a pretty good year.
Yeah, but
he's not standing on his head by any means, and like he's not like a Vezina Trophy candidate, or was ever thought about that going into the season. It was a nice little move, but it was not a game changer. They're still in the same spot that they've been the last couple of years. So to me, the biggest thing goes back to goaltending, and they need one of these prospects. Like really, I think it all hinges on Kosa coming out,
of course,
and being a stud.
First round pick, first round pick, and typically you don't draft goalies that high. And like that'll be whether they make the playoffs or not. That end of the year press conference with Steve Yzerman, like that's going to be a question.
He tends to not say a whole lot, but he's going to need to say some things because if he's still the GM, he is on the hot seat. Whether he's on the hot seat with ownership and management, he's definitely on the hot seat with the fan base and media, because this can't continue. 10 straight years of the Red Wings missing the playoffs, 7 under Yzerman.
I think
this is unsustainable. You can't keep doing this
in any sport. That's bad, but especially hockey, where half the league makes it. Like,
especially in Hockey Town.
Yeah, you know how I feel about that. But yes, especially Hockey Town. Yeah. But okay, prediction, because the next time we're going to talk, the season will be over. Prediction: do they make the playoffs?
Oh, they're not making the playoffs.
I don't think so either.
There's no way.
I don't think so.
I'd be shocked, because not only now do they have to win. They basically have to win out, which I absolutely do not think is going to happen. But they're going to need some help from other teams too. The Columbus loss will kill them, because they were, there was a team they're directly battling with. They had it. They had a regulation win, which is a key tiebreaker in all this, and they had it. They had 2 points in their hand. They're going to give Columbus, who's going to walk away with 0 points. 18 seconds left. They had it right in their hands. and they lost it, and then they end up losing the game. Like that was it. That was their season right there. I think that was the dagger. I think that killed them.
Yep.
I hope, I'm hoping things can turn. We've obviously seen crazier things happen. We mentioned the 2024 Tigers. So we've seen some crazy stuff happen and teams make the playoffs out of nowhere. It's going to take something like that, man, to get in. I hope the heck it happens. It'd be so fun to have Red Wings back in the playoffs. Red Wings and Pistons in the playoffs at the same time. But I just don't see it happening.
April in the D, Dan.
Yeah.
April in the D isn't what we thought it would be. So
no.
Besides the Pistons.
Besides the Pistons, and speaking of the Pistons, we didn't talk about them this morning, but we got a really great guest, a returning guest, and Sean Murphy from Half Court Podcast is going to be back on with us this Sunday nights at 8. We're really going to get in depth with the Pistons, number one team in the East. Kate Cunningham came back last night. Beef Stew came back last night. They're fully healthy, ready to roll. So we're excited about the Pistons, and we're excited to talk to Sean Murphy, preview the Eastern Conference playoffs and the preview the Pistons, hopefully, long run in the NBA playoffs this year. So we're looking forward to that. But any final thoughts tonight, Brian, this morning before we log off here?
No, this is a good talk, Dan. It's been a while, but it's been fantastic. Enjoy the rest of your week. The weather's getting nicer, and thinking I might go for a run today, get a little exercise. But yeah, man, things are good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good to talk to you, Brian. And that will wrap it up for today. For Coach Barnes, I'm Dan Murphy, and we'll see you again Sunday night.